The last section of Chapter 13 before our mid-unit quiz is called the law of cosines. The law of cosines is the complement to the law of sines, because the law of sines only works for certain cases but does not work for others. The law of sines does not work for SAS or SSS. We know the law of sines works for angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle, and sometimes for SSA. But SAS and SSS, the law of sines will not work for. But that's why you've got the law of cosines. The law of cosines is used for SSS or SAS situations. So here's our triangle. I color-coded it for you if you'd like to color-code it. It matches up to the law of cosines, which I'm putting the red bracket around. The law of cosines basically says this, if I read the first line. If I want to find out how long side A is, A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared, but then you minus off 2 times B times C times the cosine of angle A. Now, you're going to notice it's written in 3 different ways. This is if you're trying to find side B, and this is if you're trying to find side C. One thing I want you to notice, whatever side you're trying to figure out, that same angle is in the cosine function. Notice there's a pattern there, people. Look for patterns. So, pause the video, and I want you to write down the 3 laws of cosines depending on what side you're trying to find. And if you notice, I've color-coded them, so sides A are in red, sides B are in blue, and sides C's are in green. All right, now let's practice. Draw the triangle, please, that you see on the smartboard, and I want you to solve the triangle. Well, we all know solving the triangle means we have to find all 6 pieces of information. Well, what are we told? I'd first identify what you know. Well, it looks like we are told side, side, side. We do not know any of the angle measures, therefore we must use the law of cosines to get us started. Well, what do we know? We know side B is 6.3. We know side A is 10.5, and we know side C is 12. So, the first step we got to do is find one of the missing angles. And I'm going to tell you this, please copy this down and highlight. Step number 1, always find the largest angle first. Sometimes it won't work if you don't do that piece of information. Find the largest angle first. Now, which one is the largest angle? Well, it's the one that's across from the largest side, so we need to find angle C. So if I go back a slide and find angle C is the only one that is right here. That means we need to use the bottom formula because that's the only one where angle C is included. Okay, so here we go. C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of C. Now, let's fill in all our numbers. C is 12, so 12 squared equals A squared, which is 10.5 squared, plus B squared, which is 6.3 squared, minus 2 times A, which is 10.5, times B, which is 6.3, times the cosine of angle C. All right. Well, people, here's where you got to work backwards. You got to go backwards all the way and solve for C. So, if I actually figure these numbers out, 12 squared is 144. 10.5 squared is 110.25 plus 6.3 squared is 39.69 minus 2 times 10.5 times 6.3 times cosine C. All right, well, people, what you got to do first is you need to minus off the parts that are added on. That's the first step when solving for my C, which is over here. So I got to do 144 minus 110.25 minus 39.69. And that gives me an answer of negative 5.94, which is equal to negative 2 times 10.5 times 6.3 times cosine C. That's step one. We got to get rid of these parts right here. Now, this is all times, people. Times sign, times sign, times sign. So I got to divide by negative 2 and 10.5 and 6.3. I got to do the same thing over here. So negative 5.94 divided by negative 2 divided by 10.5 divided by 6.3. You do them all, and you get 0.04489. I'm going to write this in red. 0.04489, which is equal to cosine of angle C. And this is where you do cosine inverse. And if you do cosine inverse of 0.04489. Sorry, the smart boy ran out of room. But if you do cosine inverse of that, 0.04489, you find out that angle C is 87.4 degrees. There you go. All right, so now you know that. You know angle C is 87.4. All right, good. So now that you know that, and you've got an angle measure, now you can use the law of sines to find the rest of it. So I'm going to erase all this. So now that I found my largest angle first, now let's just use the law of sines to find the rest of them. That will be easiest. So let's say we're going to find angle B. So then we'll go sine of angle B over 6.3 is equal to the sine of 87.4 degrees over 12, because that's side C. Now, if you just do your cross multiplication, 6.3 times sine of 87.4, and then divide it by 12, you find out that the sine of angle B is equal to 0.52445. And now I do sine inverse to both sides. Sine inverse of 0.52445, and I get that angle B should come out to be about 31.6 degrees. Angle B is 31.6 degrees. There you go. Okay, sorry, for some reason it's not, smartboard's not working quite exact. But now if you know those two angles, now it's easy to figure out angle A. All you do is subtract from 180, and you end up getting angle A comes out to be 61 degrees. And you have solved your triangle. That's how you use the law of cosines. Now, I want you to try one. I want you to solve this triangle, please. Pause the video and see if you can come up with all the answers. All right, well, what are you told? In this particular case, it looks like you are told side, angle, side. All right, well, side A is 7. Oops, put that in the wrong spot. Side A is 7. Side C is 5. And angle B is 100 degrees. So, what we need to do is we need to find another angle or side length. Now, maybe what's best is to find the third side, which would be the side opposite b, which would be little b. So that's where we'll use the law of cosines. B squared is equal to a squared plus c squared minus 2ab, 2ac, hopefully you did this, 2ac cosine of b. Now let's fill in our numbers. We're looking for b squared. So a squared would be 7 squared plus c squared, which would be 5 squared, minus 2 times 7 times 5 times the cosine of 100 degrees. This one we can just work forward. Now, if we actually figure that out, it comes out to be, I believe, the part that's underlined. If I did this correctly on my calculator, b squared comes out to be 86.2. And if you take the square root of that, that means b is about 9.3. If I did that correctly. So side b is 9.3. So we'll put that up here. Again, the smartboard is just not cooperating quite right today, so I apologize for that. But that's about what you get. All right, so now we got to find the other two angles. Well, people, you only need to use the law of cosines once. Then go to the law of sines because it's easier. Okay, so now let's say I'm going to find angle A. So I'm going to do sine of A over 7 is equal to, and we know angle B, which is 100 degrees, and its side length, side B, is 9.3. So if I cross multiply and divide on my calculator, 7 times sine of 100 divided by 9.3, I get the sine of angle A is about 0.74125. And again, I'm going to do sine inverse to both sides. Sine inverse. And if I do that, it comes out to be 0.74125. Hopefully you all got about 47.8 degrees for angle A. 47.8. Good. Well, then what's angle C? Well, very simply, you minus those both from 100, and what do you get? Well, if you do that correctly, I believe that these two angles add up to 147.8. So if you go 180 minus 147.8, angle C is about 32.2 degrees. And I believe that checks out with how long our side lengths are. Angle C should be opposite the shortest side, and angle B should be opposite the longest side. It looks like it works out. And that's the law of cosines, and those are the situations when the law of cosine works.